Originally, when I thought through the lesson, I don't think that I made the connection of the grander purpose. But as I went through it with the students today, then just questions that they asked and just the way things flowed, then I think I did connect it. So we started off with reviewing what have we done so far, and then I asked them what's our grand purpose, what's our semester projects. Our semester projects is do the newspaper. So what have we done so far? They've searched for the newspaper, they've looked at it, they're looking at the parts of the newspaper. Then we introduced the FREPA, which is the family, religion, education, economics, politics, and art, the different categories from which we're going to look at the culture and the different articles that they're going to write. So they got that. And then I said, now we're going to introduce my maps. And then we talked about my maps and we showed my maps. And then I asked them, how does the maps activity connect to the essential question? And then how does this activity connect to that grand project itself? So the students, I found that if I give them too much information at once, then they don't pay attention anyways, and it just becomes overwhelming. So there's a definite balance between giving them the end goal and then giving them pieces along the way. That connection back to it is really, really important. And as I go through this, through the years and design new projects, and I have to always remind myself that me, when I'm designing the lesson, I see the whole picture. I see the whole grand scheme. But the students, they only see what I give them. So I have to, help them be privy, share with them my end product, my thought process, and then share with them how each of these activities connect. But then if I just give them the answer, then that's not helping them to be engaged. So like today I asked them, why are we doing this? Like, how is this, what do you think? How is this going to connect? We asked, how do maps showcase history and culture? They gave me some answers, and then I kind of asked them, well, how is this going to apply when we do our Pacific Islands? So then they were able to say stuff like, well, maybe we'll map the migration of the travelers, or maybe we'll map out different ruins on a place and then pull up pictures of them so you can see it. So, just starting to make the connection. I think that I did the balance well. I really just came up with that today as we were running through the lesson, because in my original planning, that wasn't a question that I had thought to ask. But the students, they really guide, if you listen, they really guide your instruction. So it's really important to constantly encourage them to give you feedback, and then to constantly pay attention to places of confusion or, places where they might not fully be connecting what you want them to, because then you can always stop and go back and change, which is what we did today. The best part of my instructional practice was going with the flow because things just kept going wrong. The students and I have a good relationship, and we've built that from the very beginning. I tried to build community first. It's very important. I tried to build respect first. And then I also tried to make sure that they understood that I'm learning with them. And, I have a certain skill set and knowledge set that they don't have yet, but still I learn from them. So we're a team versus, me just being a dictator in the classroom. And I think that if you establish that type of relationship with the students, then when you make mistakes or when things go wrong, they're a lot more forgiving. So instead of them trying to trip you up and tease you and catch you and they just roll with it. I think the nature of the lesson, being on the computers and getting to play with the maps, I think that they were, able to be engaged already, so that was okay. But it really was in the beginning, those poor students, everything that I asked them to do, it wasn't working. So we tried and we tried and we tried, and then we just got into the maps. And they were very patient, and they were very respectful, and they just rolled with it. So for me, being able to say, "Oi, I made a mistake," admitting that right away, because the kids don't care, if you made a mistake. What they care is if you're making a mistake and they know it and you're trying to cover it up, because we call them out on their mistakes all the time. And, I also like it when the students teach me something or share something or point out something that I didn't do. And then I just will admit it, like, I didn't send the form. Oh my gosh, they found the responses that we need to import data from, but they didn't have the actual form. And it took a while for me to be able to get into my account and resend the form. So I had to try and think, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? I think because I prepped out the lesson, pretty well, that I could just jump from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. So that's really important. It's important to have your end goal. And then when everything was really falling apart, I just thought, what do I want them to do? I just want them to play with my maps. So let's just let them go. So then I just said, okay, forget everything, just jump into my maps. And I think based on the tutorial and our discussion ahead of time, they already kind of knew that they were going to be plotting certain things. And so a lot of them just jumped right into it. And at one point I had said, okay, start plotting places that you've been. And I checked back in with them and I said, okay, you should have 3 so far. And they were like, what? 3? And I'm like, it's okay if you don't even have 3 yet. They're like, no. I'm like, how many do you have? I have 6 already. I'm like, oh, well, that's great. I'm not going to fault you for having more. So, I think in the end, even though I felt like everything was falling apart around me, the kids, they got what I wanted them to get. They were playing with Google Maps. They figured out how to put the place marks. And then, we'll just go from there. We'll just build on it tomorrow. Organization was extremely important today. Originally, I had gone to, even before going to the Google Geotech Institute, I had played with Google Maps at a previous institute with them, and I knew, this would be great. I wanted to try it. Just throw the kids on the computer and they can just go with it. And then I went to the Tech Institute, went to the workshop, and he gave me literally exactly what I wanted to do, mapping out the Polynesian islands, having different data cells that they're going to enter information to. And so I was like, yeah, this is great. I've already done it. I can just go for it. And then this weekend, I started writing everything down and trying to figure it all out. And then I was surprised at how there were so many little things that I didn't know. Because I had to think, okay, how are the kids going to know how to do this? Have I told them? Is this something they can easily figure out? Is there something that I need to supplement for them? So that organization and the planning is so critical. Even though I felt like I knew what I wanted them to do and I've personally been exposed to it, I had to look at it as the teacher. What do I need to say for them to be able to get access to these different things? What do I need to provide them? What steps am I going to go in? Am I going to give them directions first? Am I going to let them just go with it? How am I going to engage them? What do I present to them first? And then in the end, I decided that although I've played with my maps for a while now, most people, and especially the students, I think, haven't played with maps in this context. So I felt that I think they do need the tutorial. So I gave them the tutorial, 6-minute video, so at least they were exposed to what it could do. And I found they didn't know because the guy dropped in a place mark and they're like, wow. And then he brought in ooh, So it's things that they had never seen before. So showing them, giving that, at least that basic tutorial is important. I had the slideshow with directions, step 1, step 2. They actually didn't access it because we couldn't find where it was. They couldn't get to it. So I think it's important to have that, and I'm going to show it to them tomorrow. But for today, they didn't have that. So, but I had that. And so I knew what my steps were and I knew what I wanted them to do specifically. So even though they didn't have that tech and they didn't have that worksheet in front of them, I could tell them, okay, guys, let's work on this now. And if you've gone this far, that's great. Try working on this now. So I knew what I wanted so that I could keep the lesson flowing throughout the period and not everybody get stuck. Classroom management for this lesson, we first started off in whole group in front of the big screen. I think they were all engaged. When they were walking in, I did give them directions like, get your composition book and have a seat close to the front. You got to be very specific with the students on what you want them to do, because if I just said go on and sit down, then they would have all gone to the very back. They might have already gone into the computer, different things. So just very clear and purposeful. So have a seat. Once we were here, then we started with the instructions and they all were engaged, they're all respectful. The way that the desks were set up, some students naturally were facing away from me, but they had turned their chair, so I didn't have to really address that. Had students not been facing me, then I probably would have said, hey, can I have everybody's eyes? A trick that I used with them in the past when they were doing this and kind of cheating and then going right back is I would tell them, I need to see everyone's knees, right? So that you can't have your knees under the table facing away from me, so they physically turn their body around. But I think from the last time they were used to that, so they're all pretty good. And then we got into the video. After the video was done, we had discussion, and when they were talking, this one particular group was really great with it, but then when somebody else was trying to talk, then they weren't, so I had to remind them. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll ask the student who's speaking to stop, and then I'll apologize, because I like to model that, and I'll say, I'm so sorry, I need to interrupt you. I'll address the behavior, and I'll ask them to, please show respect, or I'll say, gentlemen, you need to focus on someone else is talking. When we do the popcorning out, it's very easy for vocal students to always be the one to answer. So I'll usually tell them, I need to hear a new voice. And I'll definitely, if someone's raising their hand and they've gone a few times, I'm like, thanks so much, but I'd like to get a new voice. Or I'll say, I heard from this side of the room, let's try this side of the room, And so always honoring the child who's trying to participate, but then also giving the kids who haven't spoken up yet a chance. Definitely aware that, some kids just need a little bit more time to process. So a strategy that we used was I gave them a question, have them think about it, and the kids who are ready, they're like right away jumping up. And I said, hey, let's do a table talk first. Talk amongst yourselves at your table. Then we're going to share. I usually tell the students exactly how many voices I want to hear, so they know. Because if you just say, can somebody share? Then they'll just wait. One person shares and then think, okay, we're good. So I like 3. 3 is my magic number. So I will tell them, I need to hear 3 voices before we move on. It's a clear expectation, and that way they know we've only heard 2, she's not going to move on, so I better volunteer. And then also when you do the small group talking like that, then I encourage them to not only share their personal opinion, but if they heard a good one at the table, I tell them to honor that someone might be a little shy about sharing. So I give them the phrase, at my table, we had a really great discussion and this is what we said. So they can kind of preface it that way, honoring the voices that were heard at the table, but also keeping, if someone's shy or they don't want everyone to know that was their answer, honoring their privacy as well. Moving to the individual stations can get crazy. I think because it was a novel thing and they were all really excited about it, that their behavior was really good. I've had other times where they get off track and stuff. So what I do to set that up is I had my Google Ninjas in one section, and those are the kids who, they're very confident, they're not going to need much help. And then the kids who need a lot of help, or they're novice, or they're nervous, or they're unsure, I ask them to sit in another area just so that I can help them. I'm closer to them, so I can help them quicker. The ninjas, I can do a quick pass. The way the lab is set up in here, I can't see all the screens at once, so I do have to do a lot of walking around, just to see where everybody is. And then if someone's not on the screen that they should be on, then I can address them right away. And usually they know, they're like, it shut down on me, or I got lost, but so-and-so helped me. So then they get back on track right away. And then there's some who are truly stuck and they're just shy, or they want to be invisible. So just by walking up to them, I can see right away, okay, what's going on here? Do you need help? I try not to be accusatory, like you're in the wrong place, but ask them, hey, are you stuck? Did you need some help? Because it may be that the computer is slow, that they got to the wrong place, but now they do know where they're going. So I allow the students to, kind of explain what's going on and then see if they need help. And then that way, when I do come, they're not so defensive, So if the teacher always walks around the room and is always scolding people for being off task, then they get very defensive. And then once you triage everybody and you get that, then I can kind of walk around and see cool things that are happening, or the students will make comments and then I can address it. And if it's something that I think everyone needs to know, then I always will say, hey, so-and-so had this great comment. Grace today she lost her map and she was freaking out because she couldn't figure out where it was. And she went to Google Drive and she's searching her drive and she couldn't find it. And so, I had a realization right there. The students are so used to everything automatically saving to Google Drive because it's Google, they thought it would be there. So that was a great feedback for me because then I could address it to the students because I didn't even think to tell them your map doesn't show up in Google Drive. I think that the students were very engaged. I think it actually worked out better than I thought it would, even though it fell apart. Because it just showed that the students are very flexible, they're very patient, they're very respectful. So they all tried to do what I was asking them to do, and it wasn't working. And they were trying to be very helpful. Oh, is this it? Oh, I think it is this, and they were trying to be very helpful. So that was really good. And then once they were able to just go play with my maps, I just their voices, their enthusiasm. Look at this. Oh my gosh. It was really cute to see that, them checking out different things. And then the places that they chose to look at, that was very interesting. And I think because it was purely all about them, that the engagement was really high. Because we set it up in the beginning that the reason we're playing with this, we do have a grander purpose, but we need to get our skills down. So I think they understood that, this is fun, this is all about me today, but I'm gonna need these skills when I go to do my real content map. And I think students appreciate that because they have a chance to build the skills that they're gonna need for something that they turn in for credit, that's gonna count. So then they're able to gain confidence in the technology that we're using, and that eliminates some of the stress that they may feel when they're trying to turn in a project. Because we assume that the kids are good with technology just because they have their phones and they can text and they do all the video games. But when it comes down to technology for education, they really are not that savvy yet. So they do get nervous. And then I think they expect themselves to be really good at this because they're good at other tech. And then when they find they don't understand something, for some of them, they're very quick and they can figure it out right away because they're used to something similar. But for a lot of them, they're not able to make that connection where if I had a video game, I would just keep playing until I figured out how to master the level. Well, I have a educational app that I'm using. I'm just going to keep playing with it until I figure it out because they're always so stressed about, I'm going to get graded. So the fun activity that we did today made it a lot easier for them. And then now we're going to incorporate content next. I'm going to keep it. I like it. I like the way that we introduced maps like this. Definitely going to make sure that we have everything ready ahead of time so that the students don't have that pressure of things not working and it not flowing properly. But I think they enjoyed it. And I think once we get started with My Maps and they figure out how to use it for content, then we can use it for a lot of other things too. And it doesn't have to be like the major purpose of the lesson. It could just be an added element that they're using just to enhance visually their information. And then also, perhaps instead of doing a written report, they just put it in the data sets and the text and the video and the images.